Hi all, let's continue looking at some of the games of Paul Keres in the 1950 USSR Championship. Here he was playing Lev Aronin. Sounds a bit like Aronin, doesn't it? So Moscow 1950, e4 from Paul Keres, c5, the Sicilian defense. We have knight e2, a bit peculiar to play knight e2, you usually expect knight f3. We have knight c6, but it transposes into a normal Sicilian now with d4. C takes, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, d6. We go into actually a Richter-Rauser attack. Queen d2, a6. It looks fairly standard and modern so far in this game. You wouldn't really be able to identify its time from any of the evidence of the opening so far. White castle's queenside. h6. We have bishop f4 now. If black attempts e5, we've always got knight takes c6 here. We have bishop d7. Knight takes c6 in any case. Bishop takes c6. So counter-attacking white's e-pawn. So d6 is not a major concern. But after f3 it is. Bishop takes d6 is threatened. Black plays d5. We have queen e1, invoking a pin on that d-pawn. Bishop b4, pinning the knight on c3. That's kicked with a3. White is grabbing, in fact, the dark square bishop here because black takes on c3. If we have a look at this position for a moment, it's pretty dangerous actually for black with the king in the center. If bishop a5, b4 would seem quite good for ed. Coming later, it looks pretty dangerous. And there's also c4 as well. There's another pin here against the queen. So black gave up the dark square bishop, a bit of a concession. Queen takes c3. Black castled. Bishop e5, threatening some structural damage. With bishop f6, black avoids that. Now here, you might think bishop takes g7. Actually, this wasn't played. Actually, bishop takes g7. Bishop d6 was played here. On bishop takes g7, there's queen g5 check. Yeah, that would be just winning the bishop. So we have bishop d6, rook e8. Now e5 supporting that bishop, so it's entrenched in black's position. Rook c8. Queen e3, getting out of any potential discovery. Bishop e5. Which is fairly committal for structure here. White does actually double black's pawns and plays rook d4. Black has succeeded in getting rid of white's bishop here. That could have been a dangerous bishop, but the structure here is a bit diced, or dicey you might argue. So rook d3, hitting the queen. Queen's protected at the moment though, but anyway, queen a6, rook hd1, rook c6, rook c3, so trying to take out the pressure from the c file. Rook takes c6, and black didn't undouble his pawns here with b takes. He doesn't want to close that c file down. He played actually queen takes, threatening mate in 1. Rook d2. We have b6, which gives black the possibility of knight c5. Maybe the knight's doing something quite dangerous after that. b3. We have f5, afforded by the position if e takes and queen takes d6. So we have king b2, knight c5. Is this a dangerous knight? h3. Knight goes back to b7 here. Bishop b4. Knight goes back to c5. Queen d4. So for the moment, black's play is held. It looks as though, is white just doing anything though as well? What is white doing here? We have rook e2, queen h5, Rook e3, Queen g5, looking at g2. An intriguing point of the game here after Rook e2 though, there's an intriguing moment. In this position, which was pointed out, a rather spectacular resource is available for black here. Black actually played Queen g3. Yeah, it's important to look at even outrageous forcing moves at every turn, because sometimes they actually do something. Can you see what black can actually do here, which actually is arguably one of the better moves in the position? It's not necessarily winning outright, but it could give black a better version than what happened in the game than Queen g3. Can you see what black can do? If I give you 5 seconds here, black to play. Okay, this outrageous forcing of Queen c1 check is available. White's not obliged to take here. He can actually play this. But if he takes, then there's knight takes b3 check, and then knight takes d4. On king a2, black can start forcing matters with knight a6 threatening rook c2. And on bishop c3, things get tricky after b4. Because if a takes, then there's rook a8, and white's getting mated. How does white avoid getting mated here? Yeah, this is a killer position. So if bishop b2 is forced, then we arrive at a position which starts to look a little bit scary for white. Quite problematic. Yeah. Yeah. And this definitely would have been a better version of the game, obviously, with black having good prospects for at least drawing the game. Yeah, missed opportunity there. The golden opportunity has been described as by Kibitzer at chessgames.com. Queen c1 check. Yeah. Okay, anyway, Queen g3. Now, here, off the bishop e1, Queen g5, bishop d2, it looks as though is this game ending in a draw or something, but Queen b4 now hitting b5, and it's problematic for black. The structure is counting against him here. These diced pawns are actually dicey, to pardon the pun. Queen h2, yeah, losing that b5 pawn. Queen g1, where bishop e3, putting pressure on c5. Rook d2, queen e1. The queen's evicted now, for the moment, again. Bishop d4. So it's won a pawn over there, and it looks as though black's trying to dice up white's pawn chain with g4 now on the king side. But this pawn is actually doing something very significant now, this extra pawn. Without the pawn on b5, can you see what white can now do? That pawn was actually an important defensive pawn for the stability of the knight on c5. Can you see now what Paul Keres plays, his plan, in fact, in this position? If I give you 5 seconds here, what would you play for white now? Okay, a4. Yeah, actually, it's got the idea of undermining the knight with a5, takes queen b5. Where is the knight going after that? The knight's actually pretty stuck there without that support. King f7. For the moment, rook d1, but still this is in the air. a5, h5, and now a5. Yeah, it's just undermining the knight. Black proceeds with g4. If he takes here, then queen b5. And what happens with this knight on c5? It's incredible, but it's kind of in dire straits. So black just plays g4, which doesn't really help matters, because all he's doing in effect is opening up the f file and losing another pawn. So 2 pawns down, and the f file being opened up. It's a total and utter disaster now for black. Bishop takes c5, getting out of that threat with tempo. And now forget about the pawn. I mean, the pawn's probably winning as well. Just queen f2 is going to be mating the black king now quite swiftly, and also protecting that d4 square, also hitting the rook. Not bad for one move. Rook b5, check. Here, check, and black resigns. He's going to just get mated if he plays on. For example, king e7, queen f7. If king d7, queen f7 again, And we can use that pawn now, queen c7, checkmate. Yep. So rook f8 check was the final move of the game. Yeah, it seems as though black missed his chance. He did well in this tournament overall, coming second equal, I believe. So Aronin, very good player. He played multiple times. He played in USSR Championship. It's one of the best of the best. Sounds a bit like Aronin as well, his name. But in this game, yeah, it seems the structure did work against him eventually with b5 dropping, but he did miss a tactical opportunity, which does seem to be of some importance. Even though white has king a2, it does seem as though black could have had more potential to hold the game after that, causing some trouble there. But that important tactical opportunity missed, so Keres wins another game. The Capablanca quote, "The good player is always lucky," comes into mind. You know, you could argue, of course, he was a bit lucky in some of these games, but that's part of tournament over the board chess. It's less scientific than, say, correspondence chess. So yeah, it's good his opponents don't use the full resources they sometimes have available. He's playing against humans. Humans make mistakes after all. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.